So we're going to quickly
You're
move
welcome.
to our second speaker for the day. And Mr. Remy has told us a lot about not being afraid to fail. And our next speaker, she's a woman of valor. She's a firebrand woman. I admire her so much. And her name is Dr. Senge. She's exceptional. She's the registrar of Eastern Higher Institute of Management and Biomedical Sciences, AIMS Kumba. She's the founder of New Breed. It's a movement committed to youth empowerment with the goal of raising new generation leaders who are equipped to transform their communities and create more equitable futures. And she's an entrepreneur, she's a public speaker, and she's a personal development coach. And of course, she's my big sister. So please let me be proud of her. So, Doctor, you have the floor. You're going to help us strike a balance between all what Mr. Remy has said and putting it into practice in real life. So, very quickly, is there a point where great grades stopped providing a measurable advantage in a person's career? Dr. Debbie, are you there?
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I will not start without saying that, sir, you did an amazing job. Like, if you see my desk, I have all sticky notes around with a lot of notes that I've been taking down. So let me begin this way. When the host called me to say, okay, she'd like me to share on some insights concerning this particular topic, it made a mark on me because personally, I've always been an A grader right from nursery school. I used to be this kind of student that when I'm passing, it's just maybe because I couldn't do manual labor that would make me not to have 20 average because I was always sharp. But then it got to a point in life where I think the first shock that I had, this is my personal story, the first shock that I had is when I went to the university with all the good grades that I had. And then I went there and no, it didn't matter to anybody. Nobody asked me if, oh, your previous school you were coming from, oh, you had this grade, and nobody asked me that question. Like, it didn't even matter. So it was a shock to me, and I was like, wow, because I've always been in a situation where people always appreciated me and noticed me because of the amazing grades I used to have. So everybody will want to know that student that's having 19.98 average. And when I got to the university, nobody noticed me. It's like I disappeared in the crowd, and that was the first shocker for me. And I was like, why is it that people don't notice this? And later in life, I realized that it's because it doesn't truly matter. What matters is what you're able to do. And the first question that's been asked here is if at some point grades stop providing a measurable advantage in my career. I've been in the corporate world for a very long time. I've walked a few corporate corridors, and every time I take on a new role, it has nobody asked me to even bring my CV, as in checking my transcript. The first thing they will ask me is, what can you do? And then at that point, I was like, they didn't even ask to see my A grades or if I had maybe upper credit in some things I did or first class. Nobody asked me that. And then I started wondering. And so in my journey, in my career, from when I started school up to this moment, I realized that grade is just as important as when you're studying, not your life after. And what really matters in life is what you do when you leave your schooling environment for the thing you're learning. Because grades to me at some point is a reflection of your effort, your discipline as a student. It just shows that you're a disciplined student, you're a student, you learn and you study. Like you said, the first aspect of the grading system is that they measure knowledge. And in school, that's it. Grades will give you common sense. And what you need in the real world is common sense. I used to have this lifelong saying carried through my career journey. My grandma would always say, she knows that I'm smart in school. She hold my ears and say, permit me say this in pidgin. She'll say, sense for school is sense for house. I never understood is when I got into the corporate world and I realized that grades are good, but they don't really matter when you need to make that transition from leaving school and getting into the real world. It's a whole different scenario. It's a whole different scenario. Is it good to be an A grade student? Yes. Is it good to be that student that they always call you out? Oh, you're first, like they grade you within some certain structures. But the thing is, what really makes a person grow and scale in their career, like what Mr. Taka was saying, is that determination you have to move forward. It's the determination you have to work, and that determination has nothing to do with grades. Grades motivates you as a person and makes you feel good. But what inspires you to become more in your career and your lifelong journey in working is the guts that you have. So at this point, to answer this question, I would say that grades can just do so much is when you are within that specified structure, as in school, maybe for a specific position you're looking for. But when it comes to evolving and growing into your career, grades won't do. Coming from an A grader, I'm telling you, grades won't do. What defines you at that moment is your competence. And competence is beyond just having A grades. It's beyond just passing paper exams. It's beyond just taking out time to say, okay, they give me 30 minutes to do this, I'll do it within 30 minutes. Competence is beyond that. Competence is the excellence with which you do a particular job. And that's what gives you that is guts. Because what makes you excellent is not just having 20 on 20. It's that inner determination to say that, okay, I want to become more. So you work hard, not to have good grades, but to become excellent. So that's it for me.
Wow. Thank you so much. Very quickly, Mark, how do you encourage God's in students, especially when school grades everything except that? I mean, like you've said, I must admit, our educational system is so good with grading us with all the knowledge we are being taught in school. So how do you encourage the gods in students? You are in the academic milieu and you see a lot of students graduate yearly, and of course you are the registrar. You graduate a lot of students yearly. So how do you encourage such gods in students?
Okay. The first thing I would like to see here is that we need to redefine what we have called success, academic success. We need to redefine that. And learning institutions, right, they come to give structure to a man's life. And that structure is what helps you to thrive. So if you have a mindset that success academically means that you have a good transcript with no C's and no D's and all the like, then you're missing a major aspect of academic success. Because academic success means that a person has learned and can replicate to a certain degree what they got from theoretical knowledge, and they can practicalize that in real life situations. Because sometimes putting those things you learned in practice will still be within a specified spectrum, which is little. But when you are ready and able to reproduce what you have learned in school in a real life situation, for example, you're learning in school where you're doing, okay, I have students DCT, curriculum development. Now we teach them in school, they will prepare lesson notes and it's okay. When we grade that, we look for the main points that they are supposed to touch, and we can mark that lesson notes they have prepared as, oh, this person has 18 on 20. When you want to know if that person actually succeeded in knowing how to prepare, is when they get into the classroom and they are able to teach like a number of children, like let's say 20, and you pick the weakest students from the ground level and you bring them a certain level of comprehension and apprehension that they are able to improve on the certain skills that you want them to learn. That's when we can now say that you have succeeded academically. Your academic success does not end with your transcript, it ends with the result of the people that you're practicalizing that thing. And so when I tell students, because that particular aspect is not graded, that particular aspect, nobody grades you. You say you have transformed an average student to become excellent. What helps you is if you have redefined that success to know that it's not about my transcript, it's not about the grades I have, it's about impact. Nobody grades impact, it's about impact. So I'll tell my students, don't focus on passing. So I have my slogan. I said, I don't teach you to just know, I teach you to be. So until you have become what you have learned, you have not succeeded in your learning process. And only God can give you that, not grades. Because if it's about grading, a student can sit and study for 3 hours. You could do brain exercises that will make your mental capacity expand and you are able to grasp a lot of things. I hope you know that students that do they can cram and then they reproduce in the teacher's words exactly. I'm being a teacher for over a decade now. It's always very pleasing to teachers when a student can replicate their same language. It's pleasing to say, oh, this is a good student, but it doesn't. So I tell students, redefine what you call academic success. If you really want to succeed in life, you should know that it's beyond the papers. It's beyond the papers because even when you move to the real world, where you are now faced with um, job opportunities, nobody asks you the grade you had in English language. If they want to ask about your English language, they're asking you as a skill you can do, not something you passed. So I tell my students, if you want to become more, number one, the guts you need to outgrow the limiting beliefs, like Mr. Takan said, that okay, I must be an A grader for me to succeed, is for you to know that success has a different definition from what you've always known. It's not about passing, it's about impact. And so that will be it for me.
Wow, thank you so very much, Doctor. It's really good to hear people like you talk because somehow I'm in the community, but I hear a lot of students say that education is scam, school is scam in pidgin, and this conversation is really here to answer a lot of these questions because I mean, I at some point I said those things myself. At some point, I'm a top graduating student. I was first in my class with a first class degree in political science. But trust me, I came out and I couldn't do so well. And then I started to question myself, what didn't I get right? I didn't give up, but I realized that there were a lot of lapses in the educational system. And I'm so glad you are here and you are doing a lot of the things we are here to address. Coming from you, it's a relief. And I'm so, so glad. And this brings me to another question. What really prepares your CV? Take, for example, as a young graduate leaving the university, what prepares your CV for the life out of school? Because you've mentioned that there are so many places which your grade didn't speak for you. So, since we now know that it's not all about grades, what really prepares your CV for the life out of school?
Okay. This question is a bit tacky because there are two things that we have. Sometimes I think I was applying for a job somewhere and then they asked me to send my CV, which I did. And the person that wanted me to have that job was an elder brother. And then he called me back. He said, maybe I expected more from you. Your CV is so poor. And I was like, say, what did I not get right? And then he said he highlighted some areas and said work on those and he left it like that. When I was confused. I was like, what do I work on? I think that I've done everything because before I wrote the CV, I went online on Google search and I searched how to write a CV, and they gave me points and I followed those points and I built my CV and I sent it. And then when he got back to me, he said, meet up. I expected more from you. At that point, I was confused. And this brought me to this question I want to answer now. Most times, when we are building up our CV, we there's something we need to know that with your CV, there is a resume. With your CV, there's your resume. And what's your CV? I think I wrote it here, paraphrase. A CV, like I just said in general terms, is a detailed breakdown of your academic and professional history. So in your CV, you have things like, okay, maybe my PhD from this year to this year, my master's from this year to this year, and all of that. And you have a place where you show your skills and competencies. And most times, what we naturally do is can work well under pressure, good speaking abilities, can write well and all of that. But most employers, they don't look for your CV. They are looking for your resume. And what's a resume is more like a customized qualification which is detailed and tailored to the needs of that specific job. Now, what's the difference? When I wrote the CV for that company I wanted to apply for, I applied with my first master's and second first degree. So when I applied, they were looking for somebody that could help the because it's a foreign company. They were looking for somebody to be like a PA to that person. And since he knows that, okay, I can communicate well, the man was Danish. And so he said it would be easy for me to communicate. I could use Google Translate to get information and then communicate with the people that are working with that man. But what I did was I sent my master's because they said they needed somebody with master's. But in that my certificate, I had entrepreneurship and business management. That was where I had my master's. And then my second first degree was just in journalism and mass communication. I sent it to him. So when I started understanding the difference between this CV and my resume, I realized that yes, we need to contextualize the applications we send and how to build our CV. It's not every CV, not every detail in your CV is needed for the particular job you're asking. And so at that point, by me putting my qualification of MSc in entrepreneurship and business management really disqualified me because what he was expecting to see there was for me to highlight the skills I'd learned in communication so that I'll better suit that job. But I didn't do that since I was like, oh, I have a master's degree. I was already previewing the salary in my head. So I sent it and then it said it didn't meet up. So when I started studying these things, I learned that most times our CV and our resume, we need to blend them. Because some jobs will need that you send CV separately, some jobs will need that you send your resume separately. But in the context of Cameroon, most times what employers are looking for, they are looking for what is in your resume. And what's in your resume is that specific qualification that is tailored to what they are looking for. So when you're building your CV, it's good to put all the qualifications, but when you come to that area where is written there, the skills you need to know, you need to have your competencies. You should focus more on giving the competencies that tie with the job description that you're going to look for. So, for example, somebody cannot send an application accompanied with their CV to me that they want to teach, and then they're telling me their competencies in public relations or community management. Is it that those certificates are not valid? No, they are valid, but they are not needed here. Mr. Takan said something. He said he sometimes he will apply for a job and they will say you are overqualified because the qualifications he brings for that job specifications don't match. And so they're saying that we cannot take you here because these qualifications you're bringing don't tie with this thing. So I think that as young persons, when we now leave school and we get into the job market, we should focus on merging our resume into our CVs to make sure that the specific job we are applying for, the competencies we have listed in that CV, they tie with what that company is actually looking for. A company cannot be looking for an accountant and then you're highlighting your skills in human resource management. It doesn't tie, even if you have the qualification for that. So there must be a bearing, must be something that is tailored to that specific job. And if you do that, I think it will help you. I have a document that I prepared for this topic that has to do with blending your CV and your resume. In developed countries, these are two separate things. But in the context within which we find ourselves, sometimes the company will say, send your CV. But what they want to see inside are tenets of your resume. So it will be wisdom if we understand these things early so that when we are applying for a particular job, we make sure that we give competencies and skills we have built over time that are tailored to the specific job we are applying for. So I think that will help. And also, one thing, please, as a young person, never put a skill or competence in your CV or your resume that you cannot do. If you don't have that skill or competence, don't include it there. Because many times we just put things to impress the person that is reading the CV or the person you're applying to. We put all of those things to impress them. But it doesn't always cut out because sometimes you feel like, oh, I want to beef it up. It's not necessary. And there may be times you said, okay, in your ICT skills, you put there very excellent. And your boss just wakes up one day and calls you, please do this and this document or this file using an Excel spreadsheet. And you don't have any idea about it in your CV. You are included that you have your skills there are excellent. If you don't have a particular skill or a competency, don't put there. Sometimes people put English fluent. For example, you can meet a boss like me. I'm very particular with language, even right up to your commas and your full stops, whether you dotted your I or not. And if you say English, you can write very well, you can speak very well. And I could say, okay, I will not show up in the office today. I have this and this person. Please write a letter and just send on my behalf. If you make a mistake, your job is on the line. Because when it comes to the corporate setting, especially the private sector, we don't pay you for your certificate. It is competence based. It is how it is performance based. So the things that should be in your CV should be the things that you truly can do. And this takes me a little, let me just digress a little. Before you go on to outrightly applying for a job, do not be fresh out of school. When you leave school, the area where you want to work, for example, maybe you want to work in a law firm, you want to work in a bank and all of that, learn supporting skills that will enable you perform better for the job you're applying for. So for example, you cannot want to be maybe sitting behind the desk as a receptionist. You don't know communication skills, it won't work for you. If you're working in a bank, you should learn other skills. Maybe when you were studying, they didn't teach you, for example, let's say computerized accounting. Learn those small skills before you get to actual place where they'll have to pay you for the things you're learning. Because nobody trains you. Yes, on the job training, but you are on the weaker side of the bargain if they have to train you in the job and on the job and pay you. So when it comes to your CV, don't just leave school and then you start applying for a job. That qualification alone does not cut it. It is competence that qualifies your qualification. So please, as a young person, when you leave school, learn supporting skills. Learn other things that will add up, that will beef up to the particular industry you want to get into. And so that will be it for me.
Very well said, Doctor. The take home here is every wise person should learn the difference between a resume and a CV. Thank you so much for giving a clear demarcation between the two. And one question just before I let you go. We've spoken a lot about those who are leaving school. Let's strike a balance. How about those who are still in school, the students? What steps should they take to prepare themselves for the outside world. Just very briefly, Doctor, and I would just want to take this opportunity to ask everyone to have their mics muted so we don't get a lot of interruptions. There's a lot of background noise. And again, if you have any questions, it's time for you to drop them in the chat box so we can take them very quickly. We're against time. Thank you, Doctor. Please just be brief.
Okay, briefly, I'll say that intentionality is key. You cannot be intentional if you don't have a comprehensive knowledge of purpose. Know what you want. At the level where students are young, between, let's just even say between 15 to right up to 22, it's very common if you ask an average Cameroonian, what do you want to become in life? They say, I don't know. Maybe after O level, I will know. After A level, I will know. But I think that what sets you apart to start being the difference in your community at that early age while you're still in school is a knowledge of purpose. Purpose is key to existence because that's what will help you make informed decisions. If you don't know who you are, you will not know what you're called to do. If you don't know where you're going to, any direction becomes the right direction. And I always say that speed is not an advantage when you're in the wrong direction. It's so painful to know that many people start thinking of which career to settle in only after they've had their first degrees. But if at an early age they had a concise knowledge of what they wanted to do from the very beginning, right from secondary school, high school, it narrows your path to walk keenly towards the direction you're going to. So I'll tell young students, know what you want to do. And this should be without bias of I'm intelligent, I'm not intelligent, because that's another tricky thing. Many students feel like, okay, if I'm bright, then sciences are good for me, engineering fields are good for me. And if I'm an average student, let me just go for arts, simple jobs like maybe teaching and all of that. But that's not the case. Know what you want to do. Externality should not define your outcome. It should be an internal reality. What do I want to become? I work towards achieving that. So be intentional and have a clear knowledge of purpose. So that will be it for me.